Happy Sunday, everybody. I am sorry that I'm late again. Do you know that it turns out that when your computer updates and it needs to restart, it will not let you do anything else until it does? So, my apologies for being late, but it is going to be worth it because this is going to be a delicious Sunday. So, grab your pen, grab your paper, your pen and paper, or your keyboard. And you're going to want to write this down because this is a delicious recipe. Now, something that I hear from people all the time is, I don't know where you find the time to do all this cooking every day. Fair enough. I do have more time than a lot of people do to cook, and I recognize that, and I love that. I appreciate it very much. If you don't have time to cook, pick one day. It doesn't mean that you can't do keto. It means that you need to pick one day, one afternoon. And this is something that you can do in just a few minutes. All you need is your microwave and your scale for weighing your food. And when you've got that, you can make something absolutely delicious that, in my opinion, needs to be in the kitchen after Thanksgiving. One of my favorite things after Thanksgiving is a turkey sandwich. And just because I'm doing keto does not mean that I'm going to give up a turkey sandwich. So there's that. So let's get busy and make some keto sandwich bread. And you are going to love this, I promise. Now, one of the things that you absolutely are going to need for this is a kitchen scale. And I cannot even begin to tell you how important this is. This does not need to be an expensive investment. It can be. You can spend hundreds of dollars on a scientific scale, and it is not going to make you any more successful than if you do not spend that kind of money. So, why do we need the scale? Well, the very first ingredient, and I am very fortunate to have an assistant here with me today, is 112 grams of butter. Now, this needs to go in the microwave and be very thoroughly melted and a little bit warm, because you don't want butter chunks. Now, if you just soften this butter and you try and use it just soft, I promise you're going to get chunks in the bread and it's not going to turn out nearly as lovely. So off this goes to the microwave, and while we're waiting for that, we are going to put our dry ingredients together. Now, you'll notice that that stick of butter that I had, 112 grams of butter, was in a big bowl because we're going to put all of our wet ingredients in that bowl, and then we're going to add our dry ingredients to it. So what is in our dry ingredients that we need to get mixed up? And I think I want a little bit bigger bowl than this. So let's do that. Now, not because it's going to fill the bowl, it really won't, but I definitely want it well mixed without getting it all over the counter. So first thing is, now this is going to make a large batch of bread, and I'm doing it this way because if you want to do it in one fell swoop so that you have stuff for you and your family for the week, or if you're a truck driver, and this is something that I do, or Dell and I do every week, he takes a batch of this bread to work with him, and he really enjoys it. Okay, so 192 grams of almond flour. Now, sometimes a gram or two is not that big a deal. In this particular case, it kind of is a big deal because you want to make sure that the consistency, the mouthfeel of your bread stays consistent. Okay, so 192 grams of flour, 84 grams of flax meal. So if you have a grinder at home, you want to use your blender, your food processor, you can buy flaxseed and you can grind this yourself. So this is a fairly fine grind. So we're adding 84 grams of golden flax meal is what this is. Okay. And then whey protein isolate. Now you could use a little bit more flax meal and a little bit more almond flour to make up this 36 grams, but the whey protein isolate is really nice for the texture of your bread, so it's worth the investment. So we have 36 grams. Now, when you go to buy your whey protein isolate, this is so important. I cannot tell you how important this is. Make sure you are getting unflavored. You do not want, well, I don't know, maybe you do want chocolate bread or strawberry bread. Not in our house. Okay, so whey protein isolate. Now, the next thing, I'm going to give you two different measures. Baking powder. Now, the baking powder that I'm using is baking powder that I make. And why do I make my own baking powder? Because when you buy baking powder in the store, it has cornstarch in it. Corn is not our friend. Cornstarch is definitely not our friend, and it's not something that I want in the bread that I'm making. So, if you are using store-bought cornstarch, I promise you it's not going to give you ridiculous amounts of carbs. It is going to add a little bit, but if you've got it in your house and you're using it up, or you don't want to, oh, now this I need to shake up a little bit. You don't want to make your own, that's fine. Now, if you do make your own, you do need to make sure that you shake the jar. One of the things that cornstarch does, other than put a cheap ingredient in there that they don't need to pay as much for, is it also keeps it from clumping. In my world, that is not a big deal. So, if you're using store-bought baking powder, you want 3 teaspoons in this recipe. If you are using homemade baking powder, you want 1.5 teaspoons. So, 1.5 teaspoons. There we go. Now, if you are going to make it at home, 2 parts baking soda, 1 part citric acid, or 2 parts cream of tartar, 1 part baking soda. Make sure you store it in a glass jar with a tin lid. If it's in plastic, it will turn into a solid rock, I promise. So, make your own. See how that works for you. Now, it's important to remember that if you make your own, it is a single acting, it's not a double acting baking powder. And does that make a difference when you are making a cake or making this bread or no, it really doesn't. So you can dump it in your hand, and actually, why don't we do that? You don't want to find a lump of baking powder anywhere in your baking. My hands are very clean, I just washed them. And if you do this and just let it fall, in the bowl, no lumps at all. If you have a small sieve and you want to do it that way, that's fine too. Just make sure that you don't have any lumps of baking powder, and you definitely are more likely to find lumps if you're making it yourself, but don't let that deter you. Okay, so the next thing that we need in our dry ingredients is 2 teaspoons of xanthan gum. Now, xanthan gum is activated by heat, and since this is going to be cooked, obviously, xanthan gum works well. If you have guar gum and you don't have xanthan gum, that's fine. You can use that as well. Okay, so 2 teaspoons of xanthan gum, 1 teaspoon of salt. And make sure that you are not using just normal table salt. There is a brand in Canada, and I can't speak to other countries, but when you look at the ingredients on this iodized salt, which we do not need, you find that there's also sugar in it. I don't know. I have no explanation for that. Okay, so 1 teaspoon of salt. Now this is going to make a minimum of 8 sandwich slices of bread. Okay, so then we are also going to add 25 grams of granular erythritol. Don't waste your powdered erythritol. Use granular. It's cheaper, definitely. And because this is going to be cooked, it doesn't matter that it's granular. So we are going to use that. And that is it for the dry ingredients. Okay, so it is really important to make sure that these are thoroughly mixed before we add them to the wet ingredients, because we don't want clumps of anything in our bread. So we're going to mix this up really thoroughly, and then we are going to set it to the side. This is so easy to make, and I will tell you that if you are looking for an organic almond flour, now two things are true about this, and I had this conversation with somebody. If I'm allergic to nuts, can I eat almond flour? No, you cannot eat almond flour, because almond flour is ground almonds. It's not some magical ingredient from another plant. So if you have nut allergies, this is not the right recipe for you. If you have a family member that has nut allergies, this is not the right recipe for you. So that is something to keep in mind. Okay, now that is mixed up very nicely. And so our next ingredient is going to be our butter. Now this again is 112 grams of butter. And to this butter, we are going to add 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar. Now the apple cider vinegar is really important because we are using heavy cream instead of sour cream. And because we're using whipping cream, and you want to make sure when you are buying cream, do not buy coffee cream, do not buy half and half, do not buy anything but heavy cream that is a minimum of 35, well, I guess there are some whipping creams out there that are only 33% milk fat, but you definitely want to make sure that you are getting something that is as high in milk fat as you can get it. Now to this 112 grams of butter and the apple cider vinegar, we are going to add 112 grams of whipping cream. And the apple cider vinegar, it adds some nutrients to it too, which is a bonus, but it also is going to sour this cream. Now that we have the cream dish empty, and I'll show you why this bowl is sitting on here in a second. Now that we have this cream dish empty, we are going to add 4 eggs. Get my coffee out of the way here. Now, I put a hole in this egg a little earlier, so I figured I better use it up, and this is a good way to do it. So, that egg is beautiful, and we're going to put that in there. Now, once you get the eggs in, you are going to want to use a whisk or a fork. Works well, one way or the other. I think I'm just going to take this out of here right now. So we need 4 large eggs. And, you know, I had somebody tell me a little while ago that they had some hard-boiled eggs that they had in their fridge for a while, and they were going to throw them out. Eggs last for a really long time. They do. And I know that even when they're hard-boiled, they are still in the package that they came in, being this beautiful shell that keeps them for quite a long time. So you do not need to throw out hard-boiled eggs or raw eggs as quickly as you would eggs. If they're in the shell, you don't need to worry about them quite as much as you would out of the shell. Okay, so there is 4 beautiful large eggs, and we're going to get some of this mess out of our way. Oh, well, that just happened. You know, it's just always an adventure in my kitchen, and I just hit, well, now you guys are going to know how many teaspoons or measuring spoons I have in this kitchen, and there are actually quite a lot of them. Okay, well, we'll get those picked up, and I guess that means that we get to spend an extra few seconds together. All right, now that we have that done, we are going to grab a whisk, I hope. Now, you would think that I would have a whisk hanging here, And we're just going to get that out of the way. Now, right now, I am definitely making a mess here. Now, if you have a smaller whisk that you want to use, that is usually my preference. This one works really well. But the little ones work well too. The smaller the whisk, the less splashing I find. Now, maybe that's just a me thing. Now, we're going to use the whisk to whisk these eggs in. And you will see as you whisk this, the vinegar that's in here has made this thicker than it would normally be. It's not going to be thick like sour cream, but it's thicker than it would normally be. And because we have egg in here, I'm just going to send this off to get rinsed right now. We don't need this anymore. Once we've got this whisked together, now we are going to add all of our dry ingredients into our bowl. And one of the things that I love about this, when you measure your dry ingredients separately, is you only have one bowl that's really mucky. Okay, so we are going to send these two out of our way because we definitely need to have a little more room here. And we'll get our mess cleaned up off the counter. Okay, now you want a cake batter kind of consistency. Good morning, Mom. And this is going to be the same when it's cooked. Now, this is a 90-second keto bread, and thank you to nomnom.com for giving me the base recipe for this. I've altered it a little bit to suit our needs, but I do appreciate help that I get from other keto people in the world that are playing in their kitchens and having fun building whatever it is that they're building. And sometimes it's a wonderful thing and other times not so much. But this particular recipe was definitely worth customizing to suit our needs. Now, one of the biggest changes that I made in this, difference in baking powder for sure, but also a lot less sweetener, because that's always been one of my pet peeves far before I was keto, is that I don't like sweet bread. Hamburger buns, hot dog buns, I don't like any of those store-bought breads because they are just too sweet for me. Now, when I'm doing this, you do not need to grease your dishes. We have enough fat in here that you don't need to worry about that. Now, what you do need is 100 grams in each dish. Now I will show you. I'll just scrape this off a little bit so we're not dripping batter all over the place. Now, one of the things, and I don't know if you can see this, but my bowl is touching the scale. If your bowl is touching your scale, you're not going to get an accurate measure. So make sure you have nothing touching your scale all the way around. And I put between 98 and 100 grams in here. And this is called 90-second keto bread, and it's called 90-second keto bread because one of these takes 90 seconds in the microwave. And usually, and it saves time, I do 2 in the microwave for 2.5 minutes. So instead of 3 minutes, it takes 2.5. So as long as you get between 98 and 100 grams, they're going to cook evenly. If you have one that is 100 grams and another one that's 50 grams, the one that's 50 grams is going to be burnt. So it really is important. Now, after you get your 100 grams-ish into the bowl, you want to smooth it out. It isn't going to smooth out on its own. So you want to smooth it out. Make sure that you don't end up with a big lump in the center, because if you do, you will end up with a big lump in the center of your piece of bread. Now this is going to go in the microwave, if it goes by itself, for 90 seconds, but we're going to do 2. Now I have 2 different sizes of bowls, and even though they look like they're 2 different sizes, they're going to have the same amount of batter in them. There really isn't that much of a difference. So as long as they're very similar, they don't have to be identical. And we're going to do 100 grams in this one. Now, because this recipe is going to do 8 of these. Okay, let's make sure that we get our 100 grams-ish in here. Now, if you want to do smaller ones and do more of them, you can definitely do that. If you want to do 50 grams, now this is going to make 8 of these rounds. If you want to do 50 grams and do 16 of them so that you have one slice or you have thinner slices, you can absolutely do that. Now this one, you know what I didn't do? I did not zero my scale. So I am going to zero the scale. That makes a huge difference, because if you don't zero the scale, I promise you that your bowls are not all going to be the same weight. And there can be as much as 15 grams difference per bowl. And this said that I had 99 grams. And in fact, I have closer to 105. Now, oh, no, I was not waiting for the scale to finish. I have 108 grams. So that's too much for one of these. And that 108 grams tells me that the bowl that I put it in probably weighs about 9 grams. So it can make that much of a difference. Well, I guess I won't be using that finger anymore to taste anything or touch food until I wash it. Okay, now we're just going to smooth this out since we zeroed it for this bowl. And this is the other size bowl, so that's going to show you that they are very similar in size and shape. Okay, now off that goes to the microwave. We'll set this bowl on here. Now those are going to go, if you put 2 in, they're going to go in the microwave for 2.5 minutes on high. Now if you have a microwave that is a little lower wattage, you may need to adjust that. And that's true whether you're doing 1 or whether you're doing 2. I've never tried doing 3, just so you know, and mostly because you would have a center spot in the microwave. You'd have to open it and rotate your bowls, and I'm just not interested in having to try and pay attention to that while I am also dishing up this bread. Now usually when Del and I do this together, one of us will measure it and the other one will smooth it out, and that way we get them done very quickly. The only other thing, now that one is 98, and I'm going to send that one off so that we can just keep dishing these up. If you're doing 2 at a time, it takes 5 minutes to dish this up. If you're doing 2 at a time, it's going to take about 10 minutes to do it in the microwave. 10 minutes of your day and 5 minutes to mix it up. That's a whole 15 minutes out of your life to give you 8 rounds of bread. Whoops. 48, so. And then you have enough bread to do you for a week. And the other thing that we do every time Del goes to work, and this is really important for him, is we hard boil, hard steam a dozen eggs. So there's another one done, and we're just going to keep dishing these up until the others are done. Now when they come out of the microwave, they are very, very hot, so you're going to want a towel or a kitchen cloth of some kind, and I did not zero that again. See what happens? You guys distract me. Okay, we are going to zero that. And now if you do 98 grams on every bowl, the very last one that you do is going to be a little bit bigger, and that's all right. That's all right. Okay, 38 grams. Definitely need to zero that. It is so important, and if you forget to zero it, scrape your bowl out and do it again, because you don't know how big it is, which means you cannot accurately determine your carb count. And you really need to be able to accurately determine your carb count. So use your use your food diary and put this recipe in it. And that's going to tell you how many grams of everything there is in it. Okay, now this is our last one. Now, this one I suspect is going to be a little bit smaller. Okay, there we go. Now, yep, this one is going to be a little bit smaller, and that is because I did not add as much erythritol as the original recipe asks for. And when that happens for me, it is just fine, because Dell will take the other 7 to work, and this little one is the one that I keep at home. And I don't want to be keeping a lot of keto baking here, because, and I really need you guys to listen to me here, just because you're doing keto does not make it a weight loss diet. And if you need any proof of that, I have been doing maintenance, and yes, I definitely need to get my poop in a group and start losing again, but I've been on maintenance for about 1.5 years. So now we have some that are cooked. Now these are hot, 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 I promise you. Now we're going to get this bowl out of our way, and we're going to get this scale out of our way. There we go. A kitchen knife. Now this is important. Run the kitchen knife around the outside of the vessel that you've cooked it in, and then lift it up just a wee bit and lift it out onto your cooling rack, and you'll see that there's almost nothing in there. One little spot. So not a big deal. Now, you want these done as quickly as possible when they come out of the microwave, because otherwise they can start to sweat on the bottom, and part of that depends on what you've cooked them in. These are creme brulee. Well, I guess they're not just creme brulee, but they're ceramic ramekins, and because they're ceramic, they definitely hold the heat, so you can get a little bit of residual cooking in them. And so look at that. How much time have we used? And I've been explaining everything, and already we have 2 out of the microwave, and we have 2 more coming out of the microwave. And then the last thing that you're going to do, now I always, except for today, I wait until these are cooled, but I want to show you. Just grab a bread knife and go through the round, just like I just did, and poof, you have bread for a turkey sandwich. So, make your own mayonnaise. It's easy, and it only takes literally 1.5 minutes. And enjoy the leftover turkey that you have with the mayonnaise and all the salt and pepper that you want, and butter. And keep enjoying this entire holiday season. And for those of you that have been offering your prayers to my family, please continue to offer it. We have family members that are really struggling with we've had a loss in our family, so please keep all of us in your prayers. They're much appreciated and much needed. So I want you to pick up the phone or get in your car and go and see someone or call someone that needs to hear from you. It's going to make your day richer, and it will definitely make their day richer. So please do your very best to live your best version of this shining life, and that's what I'm going to do. And I will see you on Friday. And I'm looking forward to it. And I'm thinking on Friday we might do some spicy mayonnaise to add to that turkey sandwich. So go do keto. Take good care of yourself. And that includes your heart, not just the rest of your body. Happy Sunday, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you being here. It's one of my favorite parts of the week.